In today's show, we're going to talk about the common data service. And what we're going to do is we're going to do two things. We're going to talk about importing data. So we're going to pull it in from SharePoint to help those of you that are trying to get started with CDS. They just want to kind of do a like for like, get the data in there and start to play with it. And then secondly, we're going to talk about how to edit data using the Excel add-in, which I think is really powerful. And it was one of those things that made the light bulb come on for me when it came to working with CDS. So those are our two topics today. But first, here's our intro. Hi, my name is Shane Young with Power Apps 911. Those guys. In today's show, we're going to dive into the common data service. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of make another one of those videos to help you get started. So in the previous video, I introduced what it was, what it could do. And so for this one, what I want to do is I want to talk about getting some data in so we can start to learn together. So what we're going to do is we're going to import our one of our favorite SharePoint lists. So we're going to just pull that in, show you how that works. It uses Power Query and some other things. Maybe talk a little bit about data flows in there, just to kind of give you guys a understanding of one of the frameworks of getting the data in. Then we're going to look at the data. We're going to realize we have to fix it up a little bit. And so what we're going to talk about is either you could fix it up, you build an app to fix it up, or a lot of times I end up, when I want to do bulk operations, I use an Excel add-in that is included, which was really just one of those moments, like the first time I used that, I was like, oh, I can finally kind of see all the data, everything that's happening in CDS. And it just really helped me. So I want to expose you guys to that, show you a couple tricks with that tool. It's not a perfect tool, so I want to make sure you understand a couple of little snazzy workarounds I've used to kind of make it happen in the past, and just give you an overview so you can get some data in so you can start playing better and starting to understand this very important data source. All right, that's enough blah, blah, blah. Let's switch over to my desktop. All right, so the first thing I want to do is kind of go to SharePoint and just remind you guys, if you've ever watched any of my videos, I've used this list all the time, but this is just a straightforward employees list that I use. It's got some different data types in it, and it's just got some good core data that I use in a lot of my demos. So for me, this was the perfect first data source to pull over. So for you guys, I'm sure you've got a pet list, right? A list like the back of your hand. And so pulling that into CDS, because it's not going to hurt the SharePoint data. We're just going to copy it over there. It gives you just something familiar to play with. So it's one less thing for you to worry about is, generating a bunch of fake data. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to grab this and pull it in. And so to do that, I'm going to go over here to Power Apps. I'm going to click on Data and then Entities. And so then here what I want to do is I'm actually going to say I want to get data. And if you hit the little drop down here, you can see there's either get data or get data from Excel. So if you had an Excel workbook, you could walk through that. But I am going to get it from SharePoint. So we're going to say get data. And what this really is just kind of a web UI for Power Query. So we're going to realize, see right there, Power Query. It's actually just running Power Query for us. So we can pull data in from Excel, from SharePoint, from Azure SQL. I think SQL and SharePoint and Excel are the three places I've pulled, but there's other things out there. You can get a Snowflake. Who doesn't want a Snowflake? But different types of queries to pull in our data in. So that's what we look at here. And to do that, let's click on SharePoint Online List. Now for your SharePoint Online List, I'm going to go back over here. And so I want just the root URL. So I've seen some people run into issues. If you give it a folder, you give it subsites, you give it lower objects, it has a hard time. So I've had the best luck with just like in this case, sites/PA, which is my site collection. So we're going to paste that in. And so then you can see it's trying to do anonymous authentication. Well, that ain't going to work. So I'm going to say edit my connection, and I want to use a Microsoft account. And then it's going to push me to sign in. And here we'll pull this over so you can see it. So here you can see it's like, all right, pick your account. Well, I want my Shane at Power Apps 911 account. And so then it authenticated. Now it's because my browser had it saved. You might have to authenticate again. You might have to MFA, but whatever it is, it's the normal login experience. So we don't have to worry about that too much. All right, so that looks good to me. We'll say next. And you can see that it does not like my credentials. Of course not. Why would it? So let's try and say create a new connection. Boom, 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 boom. Notice you can use an on-prem data gateway. I do want my Microsoft account. I am going to sign in again. I'm going to choose me again. And so now let's see if it works. So say next. And so after about 30 seconds, it brought me to this screen telling me that it's successfully authenticated. And I'll be honest with you guys, every time I do that connection, it seems to be like a slightly different set of steps. But basically, it just needs to authenticate using a Microsoft account in the case of SharePoint. And, I just kind of have to fight through it. So hopefully it goes smoother for you guys, but it never goes smooth for me, but I always get through. So anyway, here we are. And so here are all my different SharePoint Online lists. Woo! And so then down here somewhere is my employees. So we're going to choose employees. And so you could sit here and wait on the preview. I never do. I just say, I want to go transform from data. And so that's going to jump me to the next screen. And so this is where you see, if you're familiar with Power Query, right, this starts to feel really normal. Like, hey, wait a minute. All these different options around editing my query. And honestly, you don't have to do any of the things that I'm about to show you here. But if you want to, I think it makes a lot of sense, because if you've ever looked at SharePoint's data structures, it has a lot of columns that you don't care about. And so in that case, we're not going to take any of those. We're going to try and trim those down and just take the data columns we want. All right, another 20 seconds of dead air cut out there. So now we've loaded in here. And so you can start to see, all right, like, all right, I don't care about the content type ID. So I'm just going to right click and say remove column. Title sounds good. Compliance asset. I still do not really know what that's for. I mean, I kind of do, but it's a dumb one. Now, favorite color value. This is important. So favorite color in my list is a choice column. It's just going to bring over the text, green, blue, red. So it's not going to set up option sets or any of that for us in CDS, which is fine because I don't like option sets. But just keep that in mind, right? This isn't perfect. And that's one of the things I want to talk about as you're pulling in your SharePoint data. You got to kind of go validate a little bit and understand. So department, hire date, good at their job. I got that face column. Now notice here, it's kind of got duplicates. That's probably going to be a problem. Note, age, let's see. And I think with age right here, we're going to go in here and change the properties of it. Yes, that's right. So I've learned from previous loads that it brings this in as a decimal number. But for me, people's ages are whole numbers. I don't celebrate my kid's 10.5 birthday, even though he'd like me to. So what you want to do here is I'm going to right click on this column and I'm going to say, hey column, I want to come in here and change your type, because right now it is doing a decimal number. I want you to do a whole number. And when you do that, it's going to reload. Notice over here on the right, if you're not familiar with Power Query, it's also kind of telling me the steps so I can kind of see what I've done along the way if I wanted to. And also keep in mind, you might not get it right on the first try, which is totally okay. That's the reason that we're testing. We're playing with this now. So when our boss tells us we have this critical project that's due in an hour, we're not learning it to fly then. So that's why I'm able, last time I imported it, I had the problem with it. This time I don't. So hourly wage, that is a decimal, so that seems good. Some employee emails. I got some IDs, so content type I don't want. And then, let's see. All right, so I think you get the idea. I would probably come in here, honestly, and trim out more of these columns, but I am too lazy, and you guys don't want to watch me just keep right-clicking and removing, but don't take any of the columns you don't want. That's the key. You can also add columns. With Power Query, I am not smart enough to teach you Power Query, but with Power Query, there's a lot you can do to transform the data as you bring it in. We're just going to roll with bringing it in like it is. So say next. Okay, so then now we get brought to the map entity screen, right? And it took a few seconds. I cut out some more dead air for you guys. But so here you can load to new entity, load to existing entity. Do not load. That makes no sense. So I'm going to say load to a new entity. And I'm going to call this entity name employees video. And then I'm going to set the entity display name right here to the same thing. So I want to make it so it's real obvious what it is when we bring it over, right? And so then what I need to do is I need to be like, all right, what is the primary name field? So when I created an entity in the last video, we had to set that primary one. So I got to figure out which one is my primary piece here. And so forever in this data set, it's been the title has been my required column. So that'll continue to be my primary name field. So then here you also will see you can start to manipulate a little bit, but remember we talked about the whole age and we set it to a whole number. Last time I did this, it set a floating point number and you can't change that on this screen. I had to change it back a couple screens ago. But things like departments coming in as multi-line text, well, that's just regular text. Employees, regular text. Face has got a lot, we'll leave it multi-line. Favorite color value, remember that's that whole problem you're gonna have that used to be an option set or a choice column in SharePoint. So now it's just plain text. First name's text, last name is text. And I honestly probably don't need to change these. Note would be multi-line, and then I don't really care about the rest of these. Perfect. But it's just reminding you have the ability to manipulate some of those pieces. So we're going to say next. And so then on this screen, it's like, hey, do you want to refresh manually, or you can refresh automatically and set a schedule? We'll talk more about the difference between refresh manually and refresh automatically at the end of the video when we kind of come back and edit this connection. For right now, let's just say create to keep ourselves going. All right, and now it's off to the races. So as another 15 seconds, if you want to hit Data Flows, what you would see is that the project is right here. I called itself Project 3, very fancy name. It is in the process of pulling itself in. And this will probably take a minute or two, so I'm going to pause the video while this all runs. But when we come back, we will have our data. So I'll be back in just a second. Okay, so it looks like after a minute or two there, project 3 finished. And I tell you guys, while this was going, I was editing the previous section. I swear to you, I deleted more. Like there was more dead air recorded than it was words. It was a lot of time cut out for you guys. Anyway, so now that this is done, yay! What we should be able to do is click on Data and Entities. And then we can scroll down here and we should see Employee Video. Shoo, glad it's there. And so then you can see all the crazy fields got defined. And then if we go to Data, remember this trick. And so then one of the things I always do is I just click on Custom Fields. And so then that kind of gives me the way to look at the data the way I want. And you can see that, there's our friend Nicola, the CEO, and Greg, and Chewy, and Ferguson. All right. So that's my data set. Right? It might not be perfect, but that feels like my data set. So you know what I'm going to do? Is I'm going to go jump over and let's make ourselves an app. So we'll hit create and then we'll say canvas app from blank. And then we'll call this a CDO import fun. And then we'll call that a tablet. We'll say create. All right. And so now we're over here. We can just do an insert and a gallery and then a vertical. And so then now we'll just type in employees. Oh, employee videos. Woohoo! There you go. And so it doesn't map the data out as well as it normally does, but that's all right. We know how to click over here. And notice with CDS, we could use our views. So if I had a data view, I have some views, I could use those. We're not going to mess with that. It's another video, but someone on Twitter asked, so I thought I'd point out you could just use views right there. So say fields, so about title, and then here for subtitle, let's just put in first name so we can kind of see who these people are. There's our names. And then so for the image, now there isn't anything. All right, well, that's all right. So what I figured was I know that in SharePoint, it's in a column named face. I'm just going to type in this item dot face. There it is. Now, when I do this, though, it's a text, but I expect that because in SharePoint, it was a URL, but it's not showing up. So then what I do is I'm going to go over here and I'm going to be like, all right, face. And so then I'm going to just change this thing to make it a smaller font. And then we'll make it scroll, and then we'll hit play so it's a little bit bigger. But you can see that it is, oh, no, that's too small. Give me this thing. All right. So hopefully you guys can see that. But what happened here was because of the way that column was set up, when it got imported, it imported both the URL and then it tried to import like a name as well, but it turns out that it just had the URL again. So it gave me the URL, comma, the URL. All right. Well, I'm a fancy PowerShell ninja, or Power Apps, not PowerShell, Shane. So I could probably do something like this. Be like, hey, split that data on the comma, and then give me the first one of those, and then do a dot result. Okay, so I'm not going to jump in and teach that right now, but the split function I've covered in other videos. I'm pretty sure if you ask me in the comments, I'll leave you a link to where that video is. But I just said, hey, split it on the comma because I saw it was comma separated. And then the first function just gave me the first data that got returned. If you hover over just this wonderful Power Apps preview feature should let me show you that data. I don't know why it's not. But if it was letting me show you that, okay, it's this item. It can't do it with this item. But it would be showing me that I just had 2 records being returned. So I'm saying, give me the first record, and then the data got returned in a column named result. And so show me the result, which is the URL, right? And let's just put this, right? Let's make this easier. Put this here. So then that way you can see that it is just the actual SharePoint URL. Now you have to be careful about using that. Make sure the data source was mapped, cookies, blah, blah, blah. It's not the point of this video. But what the point of the video is now with a little bit of work, I'm like, all right, I feel much better. Now we kind of have our data back. And so we could then go and do all those same wonderful videos we've done on the other side, but do them from CDS. Now, one of the things though, you probably say, well, but Shane, I don't want to write that crazy formula, right? You are not a splitting ninja. That's okay. So then what we're going to do is we're going to jump over here to our data. So back to our entity. And where's our friend employee video? Right there. And so one of the things I want to make sure you guys understand from today is this button right here, Edit Data in Excel, because it is amazing. So I'm going to click on that. It is going to let me download this wonderful spreadsheet. I'm going to say Open File. I resize the Excel spreadsheet so you can see it. And so the first thing is like, hey, it's a scary internet file. Are you sure you want it? I trust CDS. So when I enable editing, it adds this add-in over here. And so you can see it's like, hey, you got to sign in to CDS. That makes sense. I'm going to sign in as Shane at PowerApps911. What is my password? You people should not be peeking right now. And then I've got to say, hey, don't show this again. So yes, honestly, I was expecting my two-factor to ask, but I think it knows I've done Excel before. Anyway, so then now you can see though, this is the raw data. And so this is where I can be like, oh, look, those face columns are messed up. You can see like Jennifer in my records, actually there you can see the format it was trying to get. But for the people who didn't have it set, that was why it's having problems. Anyway, so I could come in here and just fix these all in Excel. Be like, all right, time to do some Excel ninja work, right? Shift and delete, much better. And so I would probably just go through and fix them because there's only 12. But anyway, I'm able to come in here and manipulate the data. And then when I'm done, what I can do is you hit publish. And so this will write the data back over to SharePoint. Or not to SharePoint, to the common data service, right? It's not interacting with SharePoint at all, right? We're not going to hurt our SharePoint list, so it's okay. But it changed CDS. And so then now if we go back over here and say data sources, employee videos, I want to refresh you, it should break, well, I guess it's not going to break Nicola's record because it's what still works, but we can now change this to this item dot face and then just Nicola's record should work, right? Because that's the only row we fixed. But so then I can just fix my data so that way I can use these the way I'm used to. So that is one of the things with Excel. If you wanted to add a new row, no big deal either. You can just come over here and start filling in the blanks, right? So what's my title? It is Excel did this, right? Did this. And then, so things like ID, remember this ID was our SharePoint ID. This is not the actual primary key, right? There was a primary key in SharePoint. It is not the primary key here. It's literally just a number column. We're not going to use, I probably shouldn't have imported it. Things like the owner, that's going to get mapped itself. We're going to talk about that in a second. And so then this is the created date from SharePoint. If you go all the way to the right over here, created on, and then there is a modified on. Those are the CDS ones that CDS is maintaining. The two created that you see over here, these are the ones that, created, and there's a modified somewhere over here. Modified. Those are the ones that came out of SharePoint. So once again, probably not data I actually wanted to import because it's going to confuse me, but it's there, so I let it come through. All right, so anyway, Excel did this, and let's just give this thing a first name real quick. All right, first name, we'll call this Bob. It's one of my favorite names. All right, and so with that, then if we hit publish, cool. And so then same type of deal. Oh, not SharePoint. SharePoint, go away. Just say refresh over here. And so then if we hit play, we should be able to scroll all the way to the bottom. Excel did this, Bob. Yeah! Do you like my faces? Probably not. All right, so that gets us the data. Thank you, Excel. And so that showed you how to add a new row. Now, another thing that kind of comes up though is sometimes you want to manipulate some of these fields, right? So for example, notice that the owner, which is the lookup column, did not populate when I hit publish, okay? But if you hit refresh now, and then go back to that side, now it did. So, right, because it didn't write the owner field. Who wrote the owner field was was CDS, so I had to refresh to get that back. So that's the reason it didn't show up at first. So that can be a little bit weird if you're kind of working your way through this. And one of the things I'll tell you, if you're doing bulk edits over here in Excel, I usually do like 3 or 4 and then save and then do them again because they're not always perfect. And for example, another nuisance. So if I click on the owner, if I wanted to change the owner, you can see the data connector over here on the right. I can't just type in Shane Young. I can't just type in Chewy Young. So if I want to change it to Chewy, I got to come over here and find Chewy. Oh, there's Chewy. And so a lot of times what I'll do is like sort it by first name. And so I'll say sort ascending, so that's a little easier. So then there's Chewy's record. So then now I've changed it to Chewy with this. And then if I hit publish, it's like, hey, you can't change that. Wow, how rude of it. But you get the idea. So if we went and add another lookup column, that would be what we'd use. We'd use this tool to change those fields. And let's just do that demo real quick. I want to show you something about that. So we'll just say, we'll just add a manager field, right? That's the reason we brought this data in, was so we'd have something to play with. So let's add a field. We're just going to call it My Manager just to make sure it doesn't conflict with anything. I don't like to use normal words. And so then, or reserved words. So I'm going to say lookup and the related entity, and we're going to look up, and don't worry, my next video is on these lookups, so we'll explain them in more details. From the user entity, we'll say done. We'll say save our entity. And then after what seemed like 4 years, it finally saved. And so I don't remember honestly, but if on Excel, now that that's there, if we do a refresh here, let's see if Excel is smart enough to just get it or if we have to add a new connection. I don't remember. So My Manager does not show up there. All right, so we're just going to close the Excel workbook. Don't save. Remember, that's just like saving the local file. So then we're going to just say edit in Excel again. We'll get a new instance of that file. We'll open that file. We will enable editing again. I'll pull it up a little bit. And so then the data connector is running. That looks good. And then hopefully, there's My Manager. Okay, so if I wanted to set this person's manager to Chewy, right? We talked about this a second ago. Let's do it again. So there's Chewy. And so now if we say publish, because we're not trying to edit a system field, we're editing our own, we're able to do Chewy. Now, what if I wanted to make all of these Chewy? You cannot, this is a key lesson I had to learn, you cannot just go pasting Chewy here, like this, right? I mean, I'm kind of using my Excel skills, boom. So that's what I want to do. Hit publish. And then hit refresh. And they're all blank. So there was no errors, it didn't complain, it just didn't do anything. It just ignored us. This is the reason I tell you guys to edit a few records at a time to get good at this. So it didn't like that. So what I would have to do is I have to go one by one and fill these in. But I hate doing things manually. I had to do hundreds of, about 1,500 records like this one time. So what did I figure out? So I can't edit this, or I mean, I can't copy this. Go way out here to the right. So if you look way out here, there is a My Manager that has the GUID or ID or the primary key for that user. Copy this, paste this in, pull it down, droop. Okay, now they all look the same. Now we're going to hit publish. Ooh, publish successful. Workbook updated. Let's hit refresh. Oh, those look good. Let's go to the left. Ah, Chewy, yay! So I wanted to share that trick with you guys because that saved me. Like I said, I had to do 1,500 of these for a customer. And so this edit data, being able to directly see the data, modify the data, this Excel add-in was a big deal for me when it kind of came to this. All right, so one more thing to cover. I promise we're almost done. So let's get rid of this thing for a minute. Whoop. So if you go over here under data flows, remember I showed you earlier. So one of the things I want to talk about, so we know this is project 3. So if I hit the little ellipses here, I can come in here and edit the refresh settings. Okay, so right now this is set to refresh manually because that's what we configured when we created the connection. But we do have this option to say refresh automatically. And so here we can set a schedule, maybe every hour, every day, every week, whatever it might be. We want to have our SharePoint data kind of replicated in so we can kind of keep up with it. So we have the ability to change it and put this on a schedule, but I'm going to leave this alone for right now. So I'm going to say cancel. The other thing we can do is we can just manually refresh. And so we can just hit the refresh over here, right? So right there. So let's go over here and let's just add a new record real quick. And we'll just call this video add. And we'll say save. All right, so then now that's in our SharePoint list. So if we go over to here, what we're going to do is we're going to say refresh. Now, I've made this mistake a lot, but basically when you click on refresh, put your hands up in the air like you just don't care. No, and put your hands off, get your hands off the keyboard. See the little green bar? Let that green bar, it's doing something right now. It doesn't tell you it's doing something, but if I click away, it seems to get really mad. But if I leave the green bar and then the green bar goes away on its own like it just did, now you can see that under next refresh, it says in progress. I have done things like where I've clicked it and then clicked off the green bar and then went somewhere else. I was like, this should take 5 minutes. I'll come back and it freaks out. But if I just let it go like this, right? Still my hands are way up here. Then we seem to be in good shape. And so now you can see the in progress is happening and it takes about 40 seconds or so. So I'll hit pause when this happens. All right, there's another minute of my life I won't get back, but I saved you guys. Anyway, now it's done. So then what I can do is I'll go here and say, show refresh history. You can see there was a couple of takes that got cut out. Shh. But there's the pass we just did. And even though it took like 2 minutes to run, it only thinks it took 43 seconds. Whatever, it tells time like my wife, I guess. So anyway here, though, I could do the actions and download to see what happens. So let's just click on that. So we'll say open file. And you can see a start and end time, upsert count 14. So let's go over here to our data source. And we'll just go back over to our app. We'll just click on data. And then there's our CDS entity. Oh, I made it mad. There we go. Hit refresh. And then now if we hit play, we should be able to scroll down here at the bottom. Video ad. Woo, 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 woo. And we didn't get a bunch of duplicate data. I'll be honest with you guys, sometimes during my testing, I ended up duplicating my list. I'm guessing it was something dumb I was doing, and I was like ready to write the feature off, but it seems to be cooperating now. So hopefully you see this, which is it just added this one. It didn't add duplicates for everything. But there you go. So now we have covered a whole bunch of fun stuff, right? So now you guys know how to suck some data in from SharePoint or other data sources. I've done SQL, right? Other data sources should work very similar. Once the data came in, we kind of looked at the data. We were like, maybe I need to fix up some of this stuff. And then we also went ahead and used the Excel add-in, which is one of my favorite tools of CDS to fix it. Now, also keep in mind, thinking about our data a little more, we know that, for example, over here, let's go close, go back to data and entities, and then down here to our employees video. Now, the other thing we would have to kind of think about, we know that favorite color, right, that used to be a choice field, and now it is text. And there is no way in here to change it back to a choice field, or what CDS would call an option set, which is good because I don't like option sets. Remember, that's coming up soon in a video. But you would have to think about that. So over on the Power App side, if we're writing this data, right, I need to make sure that on my form, it's not free text entry, that I make it a drop down. So then that way they have to choose something. Or I need to go through and make a option set, new column type, and then, define the options and then move the data, right? A lot more complicated work. But anyway, as you pull in the different SharePoint column types, you're going to have to kind of solve the problems a little bit. But that's why I want you to do it now when you're not under the high pressure stakes deadline. You're just trying to kind of play with it. So if you figure out things, you find weird things, leave comments. They help me. I answer your questions, but they also help the other viewers who go down there and kind of read the comments. All the time, people leave great suggestions and great feedback on, oh, I found that if I hold my nose just like this, then this stuff imports faster or something, right? Or maybe if your data has, chewyisthebomb.com, your data will come in faster. Who knows? Okay, so that's enough for today. It is Mother's Day, so I'll say Happy Mother's Day to all you mothers out there. Hopefully you are not watching this on your Mother's Day, but if you are, I appreciate you spending it with me. And then I will also just mention, if you need any help, hit us up at powerapps911.com. We've also got some training over at training.powerapps911.com. All types of fun things. Leave comments below if I can help. I answer all the comments, and I've been doing pretty good. I'm actually caught up right now, so yay me. And with all that, I'm going to say thanks and have a great day. Before you go, be sure to click on the subscribe button over here so that way you'll be notified when new videos come out. If you need any help or you want to work together, whether your problem's big or small, check us out at Power Apps 911. We do it all. I rhymed. Or if you're looking for more formal training offerings, we have those linked up here somewhere. So check them out. Thanks and have a great day.